The question in my mind is, how do you create or relaunch a highly profitable and successful 6 to 7 figure business? With so much conflicting advice about the best ways to start and grow your business, how do you get it right the first time? I want to help entrepreneurs make a real difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. My name is John North, and this is the Startup Secrets for Entrepreneur Show. Join me today when we dig deep with our guests and get you the best blueprint so you can fast track your own business. This episode is sponsored by Evolvepreneur.app, your all-in-one online business system. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at startupsecrets.show right now. So let's get into today's episode. Welcome to Startup Secrets Show for Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, John North, and my very special guest today is Terry Tucker. And we're going to dig into Terry's interesting life and what he does day to day, and it's quite amazing. And I think one of the things that people got to think about is time and what you do with your time. So it's very interesting what Terry's decided to do with that. So welcome, Terry, to the show.
Thanks, John. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Cool. And so I guess give us a little bit of background on where you got to where you get now, without like in terms of like you've had quite an interesting story. So give us a little bit of background on how you got to where you got to today, I guess.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Chicago, which is probably the third largest city here in the United States. You can't tell this from looking at me, but I'm 6'8" tall, and I actually went to college to play basketball. And when I graduated, I moved home to find a job. I'm really going to date myself now. This was long before the internet was available. And, you know, I was all set to make my mark on the world with my newly obtained business administration degree. And I look back now and realize, you know, just how little I knew about business, even though I had a degree. Fortunately, I was able to find that first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. Unfortunately, I ended up living with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mom care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. In terms of my professional career, as I said, I was in marketing with Wendy's. Then I became a hospital administrator. And then I did a pretty big pivot, and I became a police officer, and I worked undercover narcotics. I was a SWAT team hostage negotiator.
I thought that was quite interesting on your bio.
Yeah, exactly.
People down from that, you can talk them from anything, right?
Right, exactly. I'll talk you down. Don't worry, it will be good. You know. And after that, I started my own school security consulting business. I became a girls' high school basketball coach. Kind of recently, I've gotten into speaking about my cancer experience. Mm-hmm. Last year, wrote a book. And then really have been battling this rare form of cancer for the last 10 years. And then finally, my wife and I have been married for 10 years. We have one child, a daughter, who's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is an officer in the new branch of the military here in the U.S., the Space Force.
I was going to say, yeah, it's quite amazing when it's like I saw a Netflix show called Space Force, and it's like, you know, it's quite, you think, well, it's possible, you know, I suppose it's kind of a sought after job too. It'd be pretty difficult to get into right now. I would imagine it wouldn't be that many positions.
It really is, and it's one of those things that everything she does is classified, you know, top secret. So you know, all I know is she flies military satellites around the heavens, and other than that, I have no idea what she does.
Scary stuff, right?
Right.
So, in terms of like, I guess let's talk a little bit about your cancer, because I had a cancer scare, and I think I sort of had a fleeting thing with cancer because it was all over in a week. But obviously, you weren't so lucky, right? So, how did it start off? Like you say, like about 10 years. You've been battling this.
Yeah, back almost 10 years. Back in 2012, I was as mentioned, a basketball coach, and I had a callus break open on the bottom of my foot. And, you know, being a coach, you're on your feet a lot. So I didn't initially think much of it, but after a couple of weeks of it not healing, I went to see a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine, and he took an x-ray and he said, Terry, I think you have a little cyst in there and I can cut it out. And he did. And he showed it to me. It was just a little gelatin sac with some white fat in it, no blood, no dark spots, nothing that concerned either one of us, but he sent it off to pathology. And then 2 weeks later, I get a call from him And as I said, he was a friend of mine. And the more difficulty he was having telling me what was going on, the more frightened I was becoming, until finally he just kind of laid it out for me. He said, Terry, I've been a doctor for 25 years. I have never seen this form of cancer. You have a rare form of melanoma that appears on the bottom of the feet or the palms of the hands. And he recommended that I go to MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston to be treated. And so I did. And, they excised the bottom of my foot. They took out all the lymph nodes in my groin. And then when I healed, my oncologist put me on a drug called interferon, as she said, to try to kick the can down the road, to try to buy me some more time. The side effects, unfortunately, of interferon for me were that I had severe flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week after each injection. And I took those weekly injections for almost 5 years. So imagine having the flu every week for 5 years. And again, that wasn't a cure. That was just to try to keep the disease from coming back. Unfortunately, 2017, I had to stop the medication because it became so toxic to my body that I ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees. And as soon as it stopped, the cancer immediately came back in the exact same place it had been initially. That necessitated in 2018 the amputation of my left foot. The disease worked its way up my leg. 2019 to require 2 more surgeries, and then last year an undiagnosed tumor kind of in the ankle area of my leg grew large enough that it fractured my tibia, my shin bone. Wow. And my only recourse in the middle of the pandemic was to have my left leg amputated above the knee. And I also found out I had tumors in my lungs, and I'm being treated for those right now.
Like your body's tacking you, man.
It really is. It is. It's like, come on, really? It's like, wow. Where are we going from here? So, you
must really hate the doctor calling you up, man. It's like, don't call me.
My oncologist and I are really tight now, believe me.
Don't call me unless you absolutely have to, dude.
Right.
Oh, dear. So, one of the things we're talking about is obviously with all these challenges, and, you talked about what you feel you can do for the world, and I think it's quite admirable that you said you've done a lot of podcasts and stuff like that, and I think, to spread the message of what you've achieved so far, and the fact that I think most people, you don't know how long you've got on this earth anyway, like it comes as a complete surprise to most people. So in some cases, knowing at least that you've got some sort of ability to plan and do stuff that you want to do, right? So at least you're focusing on that short period of time that you may have to be able to get stuff done.
Yeah, when I found out I was going to have all this surgery and stuff like that, I actually went with my wife to the mortuary and to the cemetery and to the church, and I planned my funeral. And, I go on these podcasts and I talk about motivation and stuff like that. And so when I did that, people were like, don't you think that's kind of defeatist? And I kind of looked at them like, well, last time I checked, I think we're all going to die. I don't think anybody's working on a cure for life right now, or or anything like that.
I've done a bit of reading about that, and no one really is. By the way.
Exactly. So I was like, everybody dies, but not everybody really lives, and I think that's the important part to remember. And I remember here in the United States, there was a Native American Blackfoot proverb that I heard years ago that I just loved, and it goes like this: "When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced." Mm-hmm. Live your life in such a way so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. That's what I'm looking for.
Sounds like a cool idea. Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about your book you wrote, because another thing is that I think I mentioned about an author that I had that actually had a very severe cancer, like terminal. She didn't think she was going to last after about 12 months of chemo. She wrote a book during the process, and I think, when you look at it, you said, I think you spent about 3 months writing a book in between all of this. Tell me a little bit about that, and tell me a little bit about the book.
Yeah, the book is called Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. And it's really a book that was kind of born out of 2 conversations I had. One was with a former player that had moved to the area where my wife and I live, and we had dinner with her and her fiance. And I said to her one night, I'm really excited that you're living close and I can watch you find and live your purpose. And she kind of got quiet for a while, and she was like, well, coach, what do you think my purpose is? I said, I have no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about, finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth and then living that reason. So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man reach out to me from college, and he asked me what I thought were the most important things that he should know to not just be successful in his job or in business, but to be successful in life. And I didn't want to give him the, get up early, work hard, help others kind of thing. Not that those aren't important. They are. They're incredibly important. I wanted to see if I could honestly go a little bit deeper with him. So I spent some time and I wrote some notes, and eventually I had these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And literally during the time between when I had my leg amputated in April of 2020 and when I started chemotherapy for the tumors in my lungs in June of 2020, I sat down at the computer and I started to build stories underneath the principles. It was like, I've got a life story that fits underneath this, or I know somebody whose life emulates that. So literally every day I would sit down at the computer and just build stories under each of the principles. And that's how sustainable excellence came to be.
Wow. And it's actually interesting. I think as a wise boxer once said, that everybody's got a plan till you get hit in the face.
Yeah, Mike Tyson. Yeah, Mike Tyson said that. Exactly.
Yeah, Mike Tyson. And I think I was watching a TV show the other day, and they said something like, everybody's got a plan. And how many times are they prepared to get hit in the face before they give in? Right. And I think that's the trick. Like, you can get hit in the face and you can get out of it, but how many times you're prepared to get hit in the face and still get up? And I think that's the resilience of it, right?
And I think that's so true, because I the way I look at it is, we're all going to experience pain in our lives. And it doesn't have to be, we've been talking about cancer and disease and stuff like that. It could be something as simple as, you flunk a test at school, or you break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Into the world. Or you don't get the promotion, you want at work, or whatever it is. Pain is inevitable. Suffering, on the other hand, suffering is optional.
It's on you. It's on you, right?
Well, the way I look at it is, suffering is what you do with that pain. Do you use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual? Or do you wallow in it and feel sorry for yourself and want people to feel sorry for you? I mean, you and I both know this. The world doesn't owe you a thing. If you want something in life, if you want to create a business, you got to go out there and do it. You got to do the hard stuff. And, those people that, my business failed. Feel sorry for me. Guess what? We don't have time to feel sorry for you. We're busy creating our own businesses and things like that. Exactly. So sorry, I'm going to use my pain to make me a stronger and more determined person.
Do you want simple and effective ways to get started that don't cost a fortune in time and money? Discover the best steps for each strategy we teach and the most important areas to focus on, and even to connect with your best customers and grow an online community. Grab your free copy of Startup Secrets for Entrepreneurs at startupsecrets.show. It's funny when you're younger, when you think what people think of you, and you realise they think nothing. And as you get older, you realise they don't care at all, right? So it's almost like you didn't do anything you like and they wouldn't even remembered you, right? So it's like...
Absolutely true.
I think the thing is, about the whole concept of getting back up again and understanding that, things are going to be hard. And I think if you talk to anybody who lives long enough on this planet, they've never got out easy. And I think there's always that challenge. And I think way you think about it and what you do and what you say to yourself when you're alone, I think it's a dangerous thing. And I think that's the trick. And some people kind of keep themselves surrounded with people, so they don't have to say anything when they're alone. But at the end of the day, I think that's the trick, is and I think sometimes you lay stuff on yourself about things that you've done or whatever, but the reality, that's not for you to decide. Like, you should be soft on yourself and hard on other people, but you shouldn't be soft, being hard on yourself, because I think that other people can silly do that.
Oh yeah, people, yeah, absolutely. And I'm old enough that I stopped caring a long time ago what people thought about me and stuff like that. And I always tell, especially young people, that if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you feel you're supposed to do, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things that you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be the things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them. Yeah, the things that scare you the most, right? Sometimes, and they're not that, and I think it's our stories. Once you stretch a bit, you do a bit more, you realise that, hey, hang on, this is not so hard. I can get through, get the skill sets to be able to be more resilient. I think in an entrepreneur situation, which obviously our listeners mostly are thinking about it,
The reality is that you've got to be resilient. You can't think that you're going to succeed. I mean, I've done interviews with people along the way that with the show that have kind of said, oh yeah, nothing went wrong. And I'm thinking, oh, I think something went wrong. I think you just either forgot about it, or, like you just packaged this up and thinking, but the reality is stuff goes wrong. And that's where you find stuff out. That's where you learn about yourself and learn about what you can and can't do, I think. Not when things go right.
Yeah, exactly. And I always recommend to people that every day of our lives, we should do at least one thing that makes us uncomfortable, that scares us, that's potentially embarrassing, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be something small, because over time, you're going to build up, as you say, that resiliency. And so when the big things hit, and the big things are going to hit, you're going to lose your job. You may be living out of your car. Somebody close to you may die. You're going to have that resiliency because every day you did those small things. So when the big things hit, you're going to be able to handle those.
Mm. I had a friend that said that when she sort of runs into trouble, like she spends one day wallowing in it, she allows herself one day to wallow, and then that's it. End of the game.
And then moves on, right? Keeps moving forward. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. Like if you don't do that, like if you don't spend some time thinking about it and doing it, I think what happens is you hold it onto it, and then it gets you later. So I think you've got to deal with it, but you can't be wallowing in it for like years.
Exactly. Yeah, let go of most of the stuff that we hang on to should have been let go of a long time ago.
Yeah. So let's just dig into a couple of things that I noticed you talked about. Was I think we gave me four truths. So can you give me a little bit of insight on what those are, and then and we'll play from there.
Sure. So my 4 truths are these are things that I guess I've learned over these last 10 years, and I kind of call them sort of the bedrock of my soul. They're a good place to kind of build a life off of. And I have them right here. I have them on a Post-it note. I've written them down. I see them every day as I sit at my desk. So the first one is this: you need to control your mind, or your mind is going to control you. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was in high school, I had 3 knee surgeries. And as I said, I still play basketball in college despite that. But when I went back playing after those surgeries, I remember my mind was putting all this garbage in my head. Like, you know what? Hey, you had these surgeries, so you're probably a step slower on the basketball court, or coaches aren't going to want to recruit you.
That little skinny person's taking the back of your head, right?
Exactly. And, I was like, no, wait a minute. I'm still playing at an elite level. And you know what? Coaches are still contacting me about potentially playing in college. So I had to switch that narrative. I had to change that. And I've read several articles that have said, every day we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts that come through our brain. Mm-hmm. So, we need to recognize those negative thoughts and change that narrative. And, if you think about it, our brain can hold one thought at a time. Why would you want to make that a negative one? Mm. So that's the first one. So control your mind.
Actually quite interesting. I was playing squash last night, and we haven't been played for 4 months. So I usually play 3 times a week. Okay. I was playing last night, and my back hasn't been great. So I've been going to physio and getting some. I think obviously not playing squash for 4 months and then suddenly playing. It's not good for it anyway. Right. But I've been losing a lot, and I'm thinking I'm going to lose this one because I've played this guy twice and beaten him the third time. And it's like, I'm gonna beat this. I can't beat this guy. My back's hurting too much. Like whatever. And I thought, no, suck it up. All right, just suck this thing. And so I sucked it up, and I ended up beating him at the last few minutes. And it's like, yeah, your brain, like it's giving you excuses to lose. And if you go for that, if you buy into that, then ultimately, and it's something you don't just learn and never do again, right? And so even last night, I'm thinking, why are you letting your brain run this show? Your body. Get your body organized, do what you want it to do, and get it happening rather.
Yeah, and I mean that's called grit, and people are so, and I'll probably get in trouble for this. People are very soft. The least little impediment that we come up against, we're like, oh no, sorry, can't do that anymore. If you have just a little bit of grit in your life, you're going to go so much farther than all these people that are like, oh, I butted up against something and it stopped me. Why would you let it stop you? Just go around it or under it or through it or over it, whatever you.
That was not an answer, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So that's the first one. The second one is embrace the pain and the difficulty that we all experience in life and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual. our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. Yep. And, to the brain, the status quo is good. Just stay right where you are. Everything's great. But the only way you're going to grow, the only way you're going to get better is if you step outside those comfort zones. So instead of running from pain, for me, it's just the opposite. It's take the pain and flip it inside and use it as energy, burn it as fuel to make you a stronger individual. And trust me, I am the biggest wimp in the world. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Fair enough.
So that's number two.
I can go with that.
Yeah. Number three is more, for me, a legacy truth. And it's this: what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of other people. And, I just think it's important for all of us, regardless of where we are in our life, to think about the end game. What are people going to say about you at your funeral? And I'm not saying you've got to change your life based on what people say. You don't. You've got to live a life that's true to you. But, I just think it's important, as we get, certainly for me, coming towards the end of my life, to think about what people are going to say. And if I don't like it, do I need to make some changes right now? So that's number three. And then number four is pretty self-explanatory. As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And, my pain is going to end someday. It may end through surgery. It may end through medication. Quite frankly, it may end when I die. But if I
run over a bus, right? You can walk across the road and run over a bus.
Exactly. Right. But if I quit, if I give up, if I give in to pain, then pain will always be a part of my life.
No, it makes sense. Now, I was just thinking about a woman we did a book for like a while back, about 6 months ago. She was terminal. She had a few months to live. And we basically produced this book about the story where she lived somewhere where she saw a lot of injustices and things like that. Okay. And she wanted to get that book out and publish it. And I think one of the things that most people, I find, is like a legacy. And it's like, writing a book and like you've done as a legacy on Amazon will be there for hundreds of years. Right. And you get to leave that to family and everybody about you, whereas most people, once you've gone, there's hardly anything to show for it at the end of it. Like you're dust, right?
Yeah.
And I think, so I think the book is probably the best thing you can do to leave a legacy. And I think and really at the end of the day, nowadays it's so much easier to publish anyway. So once upon a time it was really difficult. Now you can basically do it. And so I think, if you've got a story to tell, even in her case, she only wanted to produce the book and give it to a few friends and family. Okay. And I said to her, why don't we just publish this thing and put it on Amazon? May as well. And it's not like that, it's not like anybody, you're going to upset anybody you care about because you're not going to be around to worry about it. So,
exactly.
And so she said, okay. And it was a very interesting story. And, and we did such a great job of presenting it in a colour book and stuff like that. So I think, tell your story. Don't be afraid of what other people think, and you'd be surprised because most people, it's the old public speaking thing, right? You think what they're thinking about you. Now they're thinking that thank God they're not up there themselves having to do it.
Exactly.
So your books. Tell me the title of your book again.
Sustainable Excellence: The 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life.
Cool. And so I assume that's available on Amazon because we'll put up some links on our episode.
It's available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, Apple iBooks, anywhere you can get a book online, you can get Sustainable Excellence.
Yeah, and I really feel like you not even having read it, I know that it's a lot in it. I reckon it'd be a great book to read, and I think I recommend having a read of it. Might add to my Christmas reading list.
There you go.
So really appreciate your time coming on, and I think it's a great principle to live by, and obviously you've come up with ways to try to get yourself to a point where you live your life to the fullest, and I think that's the best thing that anybody can do. That's the only thing they can really do at the end of the day. So,
well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Terry, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
That's a wrap on another awesome episode for the Startup Secret Show for entrepreneurs. Just before you go, if you like this episode, we'd be very grateful for a 5-star review. Please also consider recommending the show to a friend or two. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at startupsecrets.show right now. Until next time, if you're an entrepreneur, make a start on your next great business idea today.